Welcome back to the weird and the wonderful with Strange Bones. That's me. So let's see how we go with this.
Glitch, they glitched.
Uzer Nudian 1, welcome. I hope everybody is having a fantastic evening as we get started and everything's set up. Fantastic. So yeah, welcome to everybody, and we are going to be starting tonight with an interesting one. We are going to have to do a little bit of backstory before we get into the regular
100%.
thing, because I realized that actually there's quite a lot about it that by and large we don't know. Hey there. And Dane, welcome. I hope you're having a great evening. Interesting thing before we even begin with anything else that came up today. Now, if you followed me for any amount of time, you know that we've covered quite a lot of early cultures, including the old Aztecs. And one of the key things about the Aztecs is their calendar. And the reason that the calendar is so important in terms of is because they managed everything in cycles. Zah, hello. How are you? I hope you're in fine and fabulous form there. Welcome also to Herina and Stefano and Dakutu.
Yo.
Hey, are you having a good evening?
No.
Oh, why not?
Because it's me, bro. You don't know me? It's David. I'm back. Tell everyone.
Why do you keep changing your name?
I don't know.
He was on me.
But it's good to see you back.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah, I'm back.
I'm
Yeah,
glad for
thanks.
that.
My computer's gone and I don't know what to do.
Why?
It was on charge. Now
Ah,
it disappeared.
well,
Okay.
How's it going?
hey Spooky, how are you?
Good.
Well, you're just in time for a very interesting little comment. This isn't about the live. This is a separate thing entirely, but it came up and it piqued my interest quite severely. Now, I think both of you were on when I did the Aztecs. And the big thing about the Aztecs is they have a calendar. And their calendar goes in cycles, which has a very definitive end to each cycle. And it was initially understood that the end of each cycle is where the entire world as we know it gets wiped out and gets restarted, at least according to the Aztecs. And of course, in 2012, that was the end of the last great cycle, and everybody was waiting to see if they were correct and the world was going to end and all the rest of it. And well, it's now 2025 and here we are. So everyone was like, well, clearly the Aztecs were wrong. Only here's the thing. Their cycles aren't about total destruction. They're about a resetting of humanity as it's known. And here's the really interesting coincidence for you, tying in with day before yesterday's Well, no, it was yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday's live, which is to say that the end of the Aztec cycle was the start of when AI became a possible thing. Just a little thought for you out there. Does this mean that the world as we know it and humanity as we know it is now in its new cycle, total change? Just a thought.
Yesterday, I did have some troubles. I was thinking about what's happening um, in Europe.
Yes, yes.
In any time, I mean. Okay, so there's a war between Ukraine and Russia, but I
Yes.
see now other people in Europe are preparing to
Get
be invaded
involved.
by Russia. No, they're not. They're really scared. They do not want to send any troops to Ukraine. America as well. They do not want to get involved. They do give them money, yes,
Well, that's just business.
but they do not want to get involved because they're scared. Just now, they start a World War III and
Well,
Russian nukes all.
to be fair, they're not wrong.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
and the Germans are also preparing for if Russia's going to invade them.
I
So they
believe
are
so.
recruiting their people. They're building more military equipment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, making sure that they can defend themselves when Russia decides that they're going to go and invade them.
Oh, yeah.
Because
So,
Ukraine's not going to last very long because nobody's really helping them. The
correct.
world isn't standing up for them because everybody's shit scared of Russia.
So maybe this is a thing after all. Maybe the Aztecs were right. Just a thought.
Yeah.
But first of all, let's get started with today's thing. Welcome to you all. Mickey, hey, I see you are lurking there. Thanks for the like. I hope you're in fine and fabulous form. And for everybody, yes, do like, share, subscribe, do comment. We need all the comments and likes we can get. Send lots of gifts and all of the good things in that regard. And remember, this channel relies on you. So, yeah, do what you can to keep it going. And with that said, we have only one rule, and that's please be polite. We don't allow rudeness, purely along the lines that we're in this to learn and find things out. Now, we were asked by Spooky, what about the Neanderthals? Because we've been doing like early religions and things like that, and it's all very interesting, and he has a very good point. But then I suddenly realized, actually, we can't jump straight into the Neanderthals because of one major problem. I don't really actually know what a Neanderthal is. Now, most of us have the...
You mean Neanderthal or...
Well...
Oh, you're saying Neanderthal?
There's more to this, and I went and did some research on it. So we're going to have to
I was talking about Neolithic area,
well,
Neanderthal.
But both and. It all sort of ties in, because who is who and what is what. Now, okay, let's go back to the very beginning and say that modern science says, at some point, somewhere back way when, thousands of years ago, humans as we know them arose in Africa, apparently. Mickey, how are you doing?
Okay, but that was like 100,000 years ago.
Okay, thanks yourself.
Good, good, good. I'm glad to have you on. We've got an interesting one for you, so stick around. I think you're going to like it. Now,
So
Spooky...
humans evolved, humans walked out of Africa, but that's probably like 100,000 years ago.
A bit more,
And
possibly. I mean, we're talking way, way, way back. Now, this is according to
the
current
Neolithic era
science.
isn't that long ago, it's probably about 10,000 years ago.
Correct, but we're getting there. Okay. But as we understand things, most of us who aren't like major in on it, at some stage, some kind of human being or proto-human being walks out of Africa, starts spreading across the world.
Well, apparently there was a bunch of different human species, but they all died.
Are we getting there? We haven't even got to them yet. It gets more complicated. Trust me, when I started doing the research, I was like, dude, I did not know this. So these really proto, step up from a monkey type human, then started evolving in varying ways. And eventually, through the varying things, including the Neanderthals, Homo erectus, eventually became Homo sapiens, us. And that's how we got the world. Now, as it turns out, it's way more complex than that. So I had to go back and figure out precisely what are we actually even talking about. So the real question was, did the
Some of the
Neolithic...
things they talk about, I also don't know. Like Lucy, the first human beings, but she doesn't look like a human at all.
Bingo.
She looks like an ape.
He's now
Exactly. You are 100% correct. So what are we actually talking about? Now, according to accepted science, which in the last couple of years, as it turns out, has proved to possibly be wrong. Okay, just to,
It's most likely wrong. I'm not going to say it's possibly. I'm going to say it's most likely wrong.
well, I would agree with you on that, but scientists are very cagey. Okay, because they don't like to admit that all their research and absolute certainty for the last 100 years has just been proved wrong. So, there is according to science, there is only one species of human alive today, Homo sapiens. That's you. However, the human genus, Homo, is made up of many now extinct species, such as the Neanderthals, Homo neanderthalensis, Homo erectus, and there are a number of accepted
glitch.
extinct species, of which there might be as many as 15. Now, the reason there is only one human species today, according to science, which is now being proved wrong, by the way, and to my vast joy, the one that's proving it wrong is Homo fioriciensis. I can never say that. The one from the Florence Islands.
Oh,
Yes. The Hobbit. Yes, that one. It might still be alive today. Maybe.
wow.
You know those humans in Australia, or were they also us?
Well, therein is now coming out the problem. So we're gonna have to, before we can get into whether or not the Neolithic era had serious religion or whatever and what it was, we now need to figure out how we got to be us and what other forms of us were there. Because it seems that, unlike what we think where you had one root and it all branched out like a tree and they were all separate, it seems that's not the case. The human species, because they are close enough that they could interbreed, they did. So it's more like a mangrove swamp. So while some of them have become extinct, others might not be extinct, they might have been re-assimilated, if that makes sense. So they're not exactly extinct. They've just come back together and evolved into something new, which makes it even more crazy, but more interesting. Now, according to this, over time, the different human species evolved and went extinct due to competition for resources, environmental changes, and the fact that the Homo sapiens, that's you, was the most successful species. Okay, scientists are still discovering new species and revising how to classify the relationships between the human ancestry. In other words, have found themselves to be wrong and aren't quite sure how to admit it. So where do we begin? Okay, first of all, we have to begin with the genus Homo. Okay, Homo meaning human. Now, at a point way, way, way back when, it was a genus of the great ape, which evolved somehow out of being a monkey, basically, and into being a person. Now, this went along with varying forms. So you had the Homo australopithecus, the first proto-human, that went through things like Homo erectus, which preceded Homo neanderthalensis, and so on, until you got to your Homo sapiens. But now here's where things got twisted. Along the way, you had the Homo paranthropus, Homo floresiensis, Homo denisovius, and several others to make things kind of weird. Now, the Floresi Islands are sort of out in Indonesia, and it looks like what was originally thought to be a kind of a not properly evolved version of Homo erectus actually was, but different. And they're an entire other species which may have gone on to evolve more and then reassimilated into Homo sapiens, which explains why, because remember, these were extremely short. They were 3 foot tall, weighed about 30 to 40 kgs, nothing more. They were quite literally the reason why many Indonesians are so small. They have a slightly different racial profile, if you will, than other Homo sapiens, just as many of the Slavics have a slightly different genetic profile, but their stronger influence was the Denisovians with Homo sapiens. Just as other places, such as around the Chthonic area, would have been Homo neanderthalis with Homo sapien, making them taller, stronger, broader.
Which one did you say were the people in Australia?
The Australopithecus was the proto-human. So once it stopped being properly ape and became more homo, as in human, that was the first step up.
Okay.
Apparently.
They are all connected, even all the other human species.
Well, nowadays, yes, it's all come back together. So the oldest genus is Homo habilis, with records going back to 2 million years ago.
Oh, gee.
Okay, so not recent. Let's just throw it out there. Okay. Then,
I don't even think that Homo existed back then.
no, it did. That's the really interesting thing. So evolution is slower than you think, but it works when it goes slow. Okay. Then from... Say again?
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Hamza.
How is everybody?
We are fantastic. Thank you very much.
What's the topic of today?
We are figuring out where we came from. Okay, so your first is Homo habilis, 2 million years ago. Okay, so very long time, lots of time in which you can evolve and develop and so on. Hey there to Emperor's Son, welcome, welcome. I saw you pop up. Okay, then these ones started to spread throughout Africa, according to scientists. Then this developed into Homo ergaster and Homo eurasia in accordance with different migrations. Okay, so as environment changed, geography changed, they started developing differently. Okay. Good evening. I hope you are doing fantastically. And thank you to Elvito for those likes. I do appreciate. Okay, so this now shows a split from the original Homo habilis into the two new ones. Now, Homo sapiens only emerged around 300,000 to maybe 200,000 years ago. But, here's the interesting thing. Homo neanderthalensis, the Neanderthals, emerged at the same time in Europe and Asia. Homo sapiens apparently then dispersed from Africa in several waves very early on, at least by 130,000 years ago they'd gone out. The southern dispersal leading to a colonization of Oceania and Eurasia by Homo sapiens. They then met and interbred with people in Africa. That was the Homo, what did we say it was? Ergaster, which stayed in Africa, and with the Homo eurasia in Europe, creating yet more. Now, separate archaic humans, that's not the sapien species, including the Neanderthals, survived until at least 40,000 years ago. So these different forms of human lived alongside each other for quite a long time, according to this. Now, here is your list, if it matters.
Things change. I mean, about 300-400 years ago, some people were also not considered as people.
Well, that is true.
Hottentot people.
But now, looking at our list, we've got Homo sapiens, that's us. The Homo antecessor, the Homo sapronensis, the Homo erectus, the Homo ergaster, the Homo floresiensis, I got it right that time. Ha!
You better watch it. Homo is offensive.
No, it just means human, I'm afraid. The Homo georgicus, the Homo habilis, the Homo heidelbergensis, the Homo juluensis, the Denisovians, also known as the Homo longi, the Homo luzonensis, the Homo naledi, which apparently is a serious problem because they don't fit any of the categories and bugger off on their own little mission. The Homo neanderthalis, or the Neanderthals as we know them, the Homo rhodesiensis, and the Homo rudolfensis. So there's a whole ton of different forms of humans that developed in different parts of the world. Now, according to scientists, who may be wrong, Homo sapiens proved to be the most effective and therefore went over and either wiped out the different species or interbred with them, thus creating the different racial profiles. But we've all got a mainline central profile, apparently, that makes us Homo sapiens. So you might have a 4% DNA of one of these other groups, but you're primarily Homo sapiens. That's the understanding. Now, I
Just
suppose...
dropped a comment. I'm not sure if you can see the comment.
After the good evening from the Emperor's
Yeah.
son,
I just dropped a comment after him.
I did not see the comment. I'm terribly
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, no, because what the comment says, all I said was Homo sapien. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw it filtered something.
Yes, it does. I think it's quite literally because of the joke you just made that
see.
they're worried that you're talking about the other modern meaning and not human species.
I was wondering what that was about.
Well, Homo sapien is still a modern word. It's a
Yes,
new,
we are, but you know how sensitive AI is, which
but there's
is...
a new name, and it's called Homo technologicus.
we haven't even got there yet, so hold on to that poor bugger, who may or may not be an evolution. We don't know. It's being argued. Huge thanks for the like there to the Emperor's son. Got a nice heart there. I do appreciate that. Okay, so as it turns out, there's a lot more than you might think. So they talk about the hominidae, which develop into a number of different things. So the hominidae are any creature that has the essential bits that fit to the category of being humanoid, shall we say. So while a vervet monkey is not part of the human line, they are still homidae. Okay, so right back in the beginning, anything with 2 legs, 2 arms, and a head that can, when it wants to, walk upright is a homidae. This then developed into a number of different things, including what became your monkeys, and then another group split off. That second group developed into 2 groups, okay, which includes your gorillas and what then became the homini. The homini splits into 2 groups, one of which is the homo, which becomes the human, and the pan. Now, I'm not totally clear on what the pan is, but they're not properly human. But the genus Pan includes the Australopithecus, which are now extinct, and certain subgroups which they say just never made it. But the Homo made it, and that developed into all the degrees that eventually got to us, apparently. Now, how this works, they're still arguing about. But what it basically means is to get to where we are, the key things that separate Homo from everybody else is tool use, brain size, and fire mastery. So those are the three things that make us different from a vervet monkey. They do not have regular tool use, they do not know how to use fire, and they have a very small brain size.
They've got tools, sticks, to get sticks inside of holes.
They do to a small degree, but they don't have dedicated made tools. So even one of the really, really early ones, my favorite, Homo floresiensis. Don't laugh at me, Mickey. I swear she comes on just so she can laugh at me. They made stone tools. They actually knapped flint stones. They were pretty primitive, but they did. And they used fire. So they had specific things that were done, and in fact they buried their dead, interestingly enough. Which again is a feature of the Homo side of things. Clearly they had an understanding to a degree that there was something more beyond here. So very basic, maybe, we don't really know, but they had it, and that's the critical point. And as a result, these early groups, the Denisovians, the Floresiensis, the Neanderthalis, all of these guys, they had an understanding of life beyond, of using tools, and of using fire to improve life. So that's the critical thing that makes humans humans, if that makes sense. Now, before this, there wasn't a lot going on, but once you got onto the human part, you got things like Göbekli Tepe and all of those things, which, by the way, also breaks the scientific mold, because there's a standard understanding that when it comes to human development, before you ever get structures, permanent structures, you have to develop agriculture. And the reason behind this thinking is that until you develop agriculture, you don't settle in one place, and you can't divide up work. You see, if Spooky is spending all day, every day building something, Mickey has to be the one providing his food.
Yes.
If not, he would starve. So before you have agriculture, you're spending a huge amount of time hunting and gathering, and therefore don't have time for building. So all buildings came after the start of agriculture. The problem
After
is...
food security, because you need to, when you settle down, you need to have food security.
Correct.
If you're a hunter, you have to keep on the move, because the animals are going to just move further and further away from you.
Correct. However, Göbekli Tepe was built pre-agriculture. So that theory is completely stuffed. Clearly, they felt it important enough.
Well, we can't say that they didn't have agriculture.
Yes, we
don't
can.
know.
We do know, because there would have been evidence of agriculture around Göbekli Tepe from the time it was built. And there
It's all
isn't.
gone now. I mean, every tree that used to grow there already died. It's gone. It's gone.
But geologically, there will be trace elements.
Buried rocks. That's all that's left. I mean, that Göbekli Tepe is like 14,000 years ago.
Yes, but when you have agriculture, you will have geological evidence of modification of the ground. And there was none.
For how long? I mean, okay, you could say they didn't
Strata.
spoil the soil, but they had domesticated animals.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
not sure, but this is according to scientists. So this is what they're saying. So it seems that even prior to settling down, groups who normally would move around a lot and wander nevertheless felt it important enough to put up a structure that they could come back and visit every now and then that had significance beyond general living.
It had to be a civilization. It can't just be a small group of people. You had to have thousands of people living there.
Or multiple groups that got together to build it that normally would wander. And that's what seems to be the indication. You had several different groups that ordinarily went around and moved a lot, were nomadic, but got together to build it and maintained there a small group to look after it, and the different tribes would visit and supply it as they passed.
I'll be right back.
Cool. So it seems that the depth of religion was previous to even settlement. They found it important enough and were advanced enough to understand the idea of something beyond just me and the next meal, which is kind of the point. Well, the other side of the matter, which makes things very much in the, let's say in the realm of conspiracy theory in a way, is the idea that they were a lot more advanced in certain ways, but it got lost due to some reason. Which is the other possible, but provable not yet. Now, what
It
we
looks like they were advanced. They might have just had wooden sledges to move those big rocks.
advanced in terms of more than we thought, which was little more than a kind of proto-monkey throwing rocks at things kind of thing.
Maybe they had bulls helping them move those rocks and then slaughter the bulls afterwards.
Well, this is where the possibility comes in, and that's where it gets interesting. So we now know that at the same time, there were a number of groups, the Neanderthals, the Denisovans, the Floresians, and possibly several other groups, all existing at the same time. And it's just that sapiens, us, are the ones that ultimately won out and became the majority. But there were a lot. Now, I do find it interesting that they are still stuck on the fact that everybody came from one place in Africa, guaranteed and for certain. I argue that myself. I don't know if that seems to be even logical. But maybe it did, maybe it didn't, I don't know. But we certainly had quite a lot of different groups that did interbreed, creating what eventually became the final result, us. Now, the hominids of the Pliocene included, as we said, the Australopithecus, the Orin, the Tugeriensis, the Ardipiguensis, the Sahelanthropus, which were genuses or subspecies of other ones that were the next step in their evolution, if you will, so that eventually you became a great deal less hairy, your bone structure modified to a certain degree, your facial features to quite a large degree. Very early types didn't have a chin like we do. There was no chin bone, so you sort of went straight back from the bottom lip under, like gorillas do. You had a far more receding forehead skull, which has come forward as the brain has grown. There were much flatter noses, which became more and more pronounced, dependent on the geography and the amount of thinness of the air, believe it or not, apparently. So evolution went on and happened in different ways in different places, which is why I think, at the very least, though Sapiens was the final result, your percentage background will indicate different racial group, because it developed or evolved within different geographical environments, some much colder, some much hotter, in such a way as to make you much more adapted to the environment in which you lived, which kind of makes sense. If you need to be able to manage the cold a lot more, or a very high altitude a lot more, or much more heat, we know that we do change. Hey there, Endless Thoughts. Thank you much for the likes. I do appreciate. But yeah, so clearly there are differences. Now, we know that in very hot countries, you tend to find there is a much higher melanin content in the skin because it protects you from the sun. Whereas in countries where there's far less sun heat and whatever it is that makes you burn, we're a lot paler. But paler manages the cold better, if that makes sense. So evolution has happened to make the different groups. So there is that at the very least. So where do we come from pretty much means a lot more complicated than you think. Homo habilis, the beginning one, which is part of the Australopithecus group, which developed later on, may have been what started, but almost straight from there, you split into the Homo ergaster, which was the Homo erectus. So this is one which now pretty much stood on its hind legs for the most time. It wasn't that it just could stand up. It did. It walked around. Just as a backstory to Homo floresiensis, not only were they small, but they had very big feet like hobbits and were hairy feet as well. So Tolkien was right. Doesn't that just make you feel better?
Yeah, that's cool.
It actually does. It's kind of cool. So you had a split off very early on. Ergaster stayed in the hot climates, whereas Europus moved to the colder climates. So there was your first split between the different groups. This then split further and further on quite a few levels, and developed into your different bits in different parts of the world. Erectus has been found in slightly different forms in different places, showing how it changed. So you've got the normal Erectus on the African side, but you've got the Erectus georgicus in the Caucasus mountains around Georgia, basically, not the American, the European. So as people moved into different areas, they evolved differently. Now, the reason that certain of them are so interesting, Homo floresiensis was on an island, and so they lacked contact with the other groups for a very, very long time. And it was only when sapiens came to the island that then they started to either integrate or disappear in some way, and they may not have. So this is true of a number of groups. So essentially, Australia is an island. Yes, it's a very, very big one, but it's an island. And they developed on their own. Though they were sapiens, they're a specific group of sapiens.
Their ancestors might have been very evolved and had chips.
Well, we think that is probably the case to a fair degree. They had to have got
They
there.
had chips. They had to have a civilization. They probably did trading and they did farming, all sorts of things, and they all died out.
Well, to a certain degree, yes. But the interesting part is which group they came from, because after that they were isolated. Whereas certain other groups weren't isolated and so integrated a lot more, if that makes sense. So the
They were quite
ancestry,
strange looking people.
well, they developed very differently and in different ways at different speeds. So it wasn't a straight line that sort of went on and poof, now you've got us today. So they developed at different speeds. They created culture at different speeds, and more and more and more and more, which then developed on until we finally got to what we can really call the Australopithecus, which then broke up into all the other groups, most of which either were assimilated or wiped out. And you got Homo habilis, Homo rudolphus, Homo erectus, the three critical ones, along with Floresiensis and Australopithecus proper, which those two developed on their own. So the Australian group went from Erectus to the Australian group, which developed. Floresiensis went off to its island and developed on its own. But then Sapiens got there afterwards and it elided back. Okay? But Erectus was on what we can essentially call a continent where you could move up and down and meet other people. And what that then did was it elided and integrated far more, creating your Ergaster, your African Erectus, your Asian Erectus, and your Homo heidelbergiensis. Okay, so now you've got three forms of what is essentially Homo erectus. The guys now, they're fully going upright, they're tool using, they're fire having, and they've got an understanding of burial and such. Okay? And it's from the elisions of those, just to make it even more complicated, the Heidelbergiensis, that you got the Neandersovans, which is the Proto-Neanderthal, and the Denisovians and the Sapiens. Okay, now the Neanderthals and the Denisovians elided with the Sapiens, and now all you have left are Sapiens. It is thought that the Australopithecus sort of went on to a point and then may or may not have faded until Sapiens then came to Australia and replaced them, or interbred and came to the next stage. And the Floresiensis might have disappeared, but possibly integrated. Now, the reason it's important whether or not they integrated is based in the fact of how your different racial groups developed and might have a number of different advantages for their geography, if that makes sense. So, like we say, in
I just looked it up, yeah.
Yeah.
So they've split it from Asia and went to Australia 58,000 years ago.
Yes.
And what I showed you was the cave paintings.
Yes. Now, all of this, just for clarity as well, as Spooky is saying, we're talking at least 50,000 years ago before we started to elide back down into sapiens. Okay, so there was a very long period, at least 150,000 years, when all of this was going on, which is a lot longer than you think. Okay. Eventually, sapiens developed more into you. And you have the normal arms and legs, no tail, a prominent forehead, an actual chin, etc., 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 because that's what makes a sapiens a sapiens. Now, I did have a good giggle at the fact that the reason we are called Homo sapiens is because that's the Latin for wise humans. And I do wonder if we are. So,
Well, we made it.
we
Into
did.
The other humans.
That is true. So, on a certain level, but maybe we're regressing in the modern age.
Well, maybe we didn't make it because we were smart or wise. We were just more aggressive than they were.
Well, that's possibly a very, very good point because of further developments that we must talk about. Huge thanks to Pihart. I appreciate your joining and your liking. That is awesome, awesome. Thanks to Endless Thoughts as well for the Joe Popular. Hey, Chufi.
Hey, sir.
Are you well?
I'm well, thanks, and yourself?
Good. Hey.
Speaking to my professor.
So, yeah, so we got eventually to say...
Hey, the ugly motherfucker, why you on my screen?
So we achieved eventually.
These guys look like they're gonna rape me or something.
Noise on my life, doctor.
Okay, so this is how we got to where we are, if you will. Now, around 60 to 80,000 years ago, or between those times, you've actually got several groups living together. Okay, whatever. Okay, so you've got the Homo sapiens, which is great. We've got Varushan saying, drill them homie. I don't know what that means. But nevertheless, good for them.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Hamzada. Okay, so Homo sapiens is around and flourishing But so are the Neanderthals. Okay, they're around and flourishing. You've also got the Floriensis on their little island, the Australian version on their island, which is a continent big enough, but it's locked by the ocean.
Can I just warn you all about something?
Yes.
There's a virus going out. It's some Brazilian virus.
Okay.
It's being spread.
Okay. Hang on. Okay. So you've got, I think the Georgiensis were also around. So we've got several groups living alongside each other and apparently interacting. Now, to back what Spooky said, we do know that Homo sapiens has proved itself to be the most violent of all of them. So, by and large, most of these groups were wiped out by sapiens. But in some cases, they weren't wiped out, but bred with and were assimilated into. Like the Denisovians, like the Georgian version, where I forget the exact scientific name, it's long and complicated, and I can't say half of them anyway. So some of them were evolved back into sapiens. Some of them were just wiped out because sapiens was very, very violent, as we know, and still is, by and large. As that then developed, we realized that what we thought was the case was that sapiens developed agriculture, which the others didn't. And as a result, they eventually didn't manage to keep going, whereas sapiens, because they developed agriculture, they developed communities which created places to live, which meant that they could become self-sustaining. They were the successful ones, which does make sense. However, as it turns out, all of these pre-sapiens groups also did have quite a bit of an understanding of religion. And there are several places where this has been proved. Now, humans are, as you know, all omnivorous. We eat both meat and plants. And we really took off when we developed the use of fire, which made meat safer, life safer for all the reasons, and you able to survive dangerous weather where it's colder and all the rest of it. It gave you the ability to step up your game. But we do know that now Neanderthals had fire, and so did several of the...
a picture, an image of a rock painting that was created tens of thousands of years ago.
Yes. That's pretty cool. Where is that?
It's a bit strange. This is in Australia.
Ah, now.
So I've got a whole bunch here, and I saw this one trying to figure out what that really is, because that looks a bit strange.
Well, this is where the arguments are starting to come in, because sapiens, once they started getting good at this kind of thing, developed a number of things, including TikTok to annoy you.
Wow.
Ta-da! Yes, we're here. They thought we were inactive. So, one of the big things that got sapiens to Australia, of course, as you know, with boats, which the local early populace didn't have. They got there back in the day when there was still a land connection, which was really a long time back. Okay, so they've been isolated ever since. This is true of a number of groups around. But sapiens developed these methods of travel which allowed them to get into places, and when they did, the question is, were those paintings done by the local people responding to sapiens' arrival, or was it done by sapiens responding to something else? So, I don't know, what are your thoughts? Is that the locals responding to sapiens?
Well, I've got no idea. These paintings do not look like people.
No, they don't.
If I look at this one.
I mean, they really do look like an alien species, let's be honest. Or...
It's so blurry now.
No, but you can see pretty clearly. It looks like something with wings. Now, why would it have wings?
Well, this one doesn't have wings, but it does have a strange looking head.
I don't know, though. Either wings or its shoulders are pretty freaky.
Well, and this one, I don't know.
Yeah, and apparently is bigger than all the people.
Look a bit weird.
And if you look at in the general pictures, the little people, the people, are all by and large the same.
This might be okay. This might be people that did that painting, but I don't know. This one's a
bit suspect.
Bit weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one's okay. It's just bad art.
Bad art. Ever the critic, Spooky. Ever the critic. But yes, so clearly you've got different groups interacting with something, whatever that something is.
Oh, they had bow and arrows.
Well, yes, tool use, which goes to show that pre-sapiens, they had tool use.
Bad art.
It wouldn't necessarily have been massively effective tools, but tool use. Yeah, that looks like some of the pictures done by some 4-year-olds in a friend of mine's school. Here is my dad.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, okay.
But you raise a very good point there. What are we actually talking about? Now, we know that humans develop the ability to keep fire and all the rest. We know that we are generally diurnal, which is a very interesting thing. We are awake during the day and we sleep at night. Why did none develop in any other way? And may they yet? Okay, we then went on to being the apex predators. Yes, we were that violent. It's true. And have so far managed to get to invent things like, environmental destruction and pollution, which are very important. But nevertheless, it's been a success as a species in general. Okay, now here's the big question. Did others develop in other ways? Because we know that it's possible to adapt to environments. Why not mermaids? humans that adapted to deep sea conditions and living underwater. Technically, it's not outside the idea of science.
No. If you look at the whale used to be a land walking creature.
Exactly. So why not a human version? We know that humans are what they call sexually dimorphic, which essentially means the males generally are bigger and stronger, and females are more intelligent and organized. Yes, you're strong and thick, Spooky. Sorry. At least according to science. I'm just telling you what the research says. We could argue that. But yes, sadly, while they are more intelligent and organized, the women also have a higher body fat percentage. Sorry. Yeah. You've got better brains but a bigger ass. According to science. This is pure science here. It's not my opinion.
Yeah, that was all cool.
I'm just teasing.
That's
So
good for it. That's right.
the other weird thing that separates us very much from animals is that we are useless at birth and for
Yes.
quite a long time afterwards.
Yeah.
Really?
I
I've
mean-
seen deers. The deer gets born right now and he
He
immediately
gets to
stands
his
up.
feet, yes, absolutely. So we are very strange in that regard, which sets us apart from anything else. Now, should the subspecies be considered parts of the sapiens? Well, it's a bit of a difficult one because we've now found that Neanderthals did use tools, did have fire, did have an understanding of life after death. And I will give you proof of that as we progress. Because those were all the things that we've always said makes Homo sapiens Homo sapiens and the rest basically a jump up from being a monkey. So it seems that we are not as arguable as all of that. It's a little bit more complicated. Now, they say, and here is where I personally wonder. We started in Africa. The first great migration went out to Australia through India. Okay. The second great one went out into Europe. The third from Europe off to the Americas. And
is that?
ending, sorry?
No, I'm watching the bird catch the bug.
Well, he's not catching it. I just wanted to show that it's not just humans that are useless. Some animals, they do grow up a lot quicker, but kittens, they need to be looked after.
Yeah,
They
They
do.
need milk.
But
and-
they get on their feet a heck of a lot quicker. We take months.
But you see, this bird, it grew up in the nest being fed by its mom.
But they've already
And when
done.
it's up and running on its own, it thinks that the bugs are just going to fall into its mouth.
Well, it's learning.
Yeah.
Well,
Or it won't learn, in which case that species will not survive. To be fair, that's how it works. So that's the idea behind everything. And when we start talking about early man, the main upshot of explaining all of this is to point out that we might not be as correct as we thought. And it might be a lot more complicated than we think. Now, this then led into specific groups then developing. So urban revolution in about the 4th millennium BCE, so about 40,000 years ago. Okay. Now, we know that... Sorry, go on.
No, I was gonna talk about this video because I posted it not so long ago, but a week ago.
Okay.
I actually reposted it. Was a quote. The bird are fed by their parents, and in their infancy, when the time comes to feed themselves, there can be some confusion when the food does not go into their mouths by itself. So somebody
Yes.
posted it. I just reposted it and said it's the same with people on welfare.
Correct.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, for sure.
So, amongst other things, until about 12,000 years ago, which historically speaking is like half an hour ago, we were hunter gatherers. Then you had the Neolithic Revolution, and this is a bit, we finally, after an hour, thank you, we finally got to where we're actually starting to see humans being humans as we know them. Okay, where we actually started inventing agriculture. Now, it started apparently around Asia, but it also occurred independently in Mesoamerica, in Papua New Guinea, in Sahel and West Savannah regions of Africa, and so on. So people twigged on that sitting down. Snugger Sabas wants to join, we'll give him a chance. Powder says, the thing is, whites were building boats as Vikings and thought they discovered a century.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Snuggers, how are you doing?
Fine.
Good, good, good. Welcome. Okay, I don't understand
Yes.
Powder's comment. If anyone does, please explain it. But as things go, humans then settled down. And once you settle,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
yeah, no, I didn't get it.
White people, I think boats were there before white people even existed. If I look at the people in Australia, they look black, they're probably not Bantu people, but they're very dark skinned, and I'm sure
Yes.
they had boats.
From where are you? From where are you?
From where are we? We are all from South Africa that are on the live. In the comments, I'm not sure everybody.
Okay. Where in South Africa you stay?
We try to avoid personal explanations of too much on this channel for everyone's privacy.
Which is Jovian.
So,
Parade.
KZN, Joburg, Cape Town. Various
Yo.
people.
It's far. It's
Yeah.
very far, young.
So,
I want the job, man.
okay. Me too.
All this.
Yo, I think you are a boss.
No, unfortunately, I'm also looking for work. So, no, I don't have anything.
Yo.
Life is hard.
Yes.
So anyway, to continue with what we are saying here, they developed agriculture, which meant they could stay in one place. Once you stay in one place, you can start doing a lot of building. And the building is what really starts to show, if you will, what your culture has. Because prior to that, it's often hard to find specific
Hello, lady.
things. If that makes sense. So the urban revolution was the big deal. And with that, we now know far more about cultures. But that said, we do know that...
Hello, lady.
Yeah, Snuggus? You,
Yes.
she's on for the live.
This lady doesn't talk, man.
No, she doesn't.
Why not?
Because she's listening to me.
Okay.
Yes,
I'm also listening to you now.
okay, cool. So, all in all, you've got these different species of humans which develop to a point, but we originally considered it to be the case that it was only sapiens that was the proper tool users that had an idea of something more than just this life, etc., etc. We now know it's not true. We do know that it was sapiens that developed sedentary living, which was important. So the ability to stay in one place. We also know that we had to develop as sapiens simply because we were not as strong. So Neanderthals, for example, were much stronger, muscular, shorter but broader, usually only being a little over 5 feet tall, whereas we were much nearer, at least, to 6 foot, which again, I have problems with because that's now. It might not be as true. I think Powder doesn't like the ancient white contribution is that Greek stealing knowledge. I think he's a bit anti, but that's okay too. Everybody's allowed their opinion.
Yeah.
Okay. These differences aren't all considered to be true anymore. Though we've taken over, it's mostly because while the Neanderthals were stronger and tougher, we were quite literally, as Spooky said, far more violent.
Local loud yung
So the difference in that regard was quite important. Okay, so with the ability to settle,
Did you wait naman at
yeah,
did you learn those ladies about something?
what do you want to teach them?
No, not me, man. I asked you, did you learn those ladies something?
That's what we are doing.
Oh, then I can see he's just laying down and he doesn't talk.
No, because she's listening.
Is he a Chinese or what?
My friend, we are not here to discuss the ladies that are on the live to... we don't interfere with people's privacy, my friend. If you're going to keep asking about them, I will block you.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna see you now.
Okay. So, as it turns out, when you get to the Neanderthal, they were far more advanced than anybody realized. They had tools, they had fire, they had forms of burial, some of which we will go through. They were all over the place in most of the places where Sapiens was. They are now extinct, but the Neanderthal extinction only actually happened around 40,000 years ago, which is very recent. And before anybody started settling down, which was 12 to 15,000 years ago. So we were fighting for the same resources, by and large, and we won. But we do know that with genetic testing nowadays, they can actually tell you the percentage of your early person origins. And we know that not everybody have Neanderthal in them. Most do, because of the fact that the larger area where Sapiens was are connected continents. So obviously the free flow back and forth. But there are places that after the last great ice age were no longer connected and they don't have it, or at least far less. So geography affects evolution far more than you believe. And the world as we know it, of course, is nothing like what it was. There were land bridges between places that there no longer is. In some cases, it wasn't actual land, but because of the cold, you had ice bridges. So the people getting to North America came across what was essentially an ice bridge, but a permanent ice
Land,
bridge.
Just the water was ice, and so there was more land.
Well, once things warmed up more, the ice melted and you could no longer walk across. And that was the key thing. Whereas those groups that developed boats were then able to cross to
There
places
was probably
later.
also land there, land all the way from Asia to Australia, because there's a whole bunch of islands between
Correct.
Australia to Asia.
But now you see, that would have been what in non-technical terms, a bridge support for the ice, something for it to be on. But when things heated up enough and the ice melted away, now you've just got islands, and of course
That's 50,000 years ago, and the Ice Age only ended 20,000 years ago.
yeah, but we only started settling not that long ago. So moving around, your proto groups did it early, and don't forget we've had more than one ice age.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the last Ice Age only ended about 20,000 years ago.
Yes, so that's happened more than once. So you can sort of spot where people moved when, because now in the modern age you've got great differences. But still, very general differences. So having said all of that, what we need to then talk about is what were the things that they did that was different? How did we manage to get to? And who were the peoples in general? Well, really and truly, we got to a point where you had Sapiens and Neanderthal and maybe two others. The rest had not managed to evolve or had been wiped out. So Denisovians, Floresiensis, Sapiens, Neanderthals, and possibly Georgians. Okay, they were the ones that managed to get past all of the early development. Then they were integrated or wiped out, or natural selection just didn't let them carry on. They couldn't handle the changes in geography, which was another thing that we forget. So you find things that the Shukba cave, you've got the North African Neanderthals, you've got the Denisovian cave in Siberia, you've got the Chinese Maba man, which are almost Neanderthal but not quite. So changes are occurring. So you get convergent evolution as well. We know that the ones that ended up in the colder Russian area went one way, whereas those that ended up on your Polynesian islands went another way. Those that stayed in Africa went yet another way, and those that ended in Europe went yet another way. Same basic species, but now evolving differently to suit the environment.
You
but
think
all with the
Ice Age forced people to evolve?
I think yes, because you will find that when you get an extreme situation, the clever ones are the ones that survive, that figure a way around. And those who couldn't come up with decent ideas didn't. So
The guys who hunted down mammoths and wore their thick fur
yes,
survived.
figured out that if I build a shelter and I cover it with skins and build a fire inside, it gets warm and I don't freeze. Things like
The
that.
last Ice Age was short. It's long for us. I mean, it's 100,000 years.
Yes, but short for historical.
It's enough for people to evolve in,
Yes.
to become a different
Now,
species.
we can see that the other thing is Neanderthals weren't very good at children. The children were fewer than sapiens, and they had a higher mortality rate. So we could have just outbred them, quite honestly. We know that most of them lived to about the age of 20. 40 was your top. You were old if you got then. And there was about a 50% child mortality. So clearly not good for survival. Whereas sapiens was far better, and with the added brain capacity, developed ways to deal with changes in environments and so on, and the ability to move more, because the more you can move, the more you can follow the animals and follow where the seasons are better, etc., etc. But why were African Neanderthals cleverer than the white ones? Had ancient civilization. They all did. And Powder is now being rude.
Yeah, I think he's trying to be a race baiter. Keeps on talking about white people
It's
and
Charlie.
Yes, so what we're going to do is we're going to block him. We're going to report him, because the one thing we don't allow on this channel, as I told you at the beginning, is we don't allow rudeness.
we're not even talking about race. We're way far. Race isn't even a
It's
thing.
the
We're
race
talking about
in the conversation at all.
white people did not even exist yet. Their Bantu species didn't even exist yet.
No. Way back when none of it existed. So we cannot claim anybody had any particular advantage, disadvantage. We are still getting into becoming what is Homo sapiens, the modern human being, of any variety. So yeah. And a lot of this is all being disproved anyway in who was cleverest first when. And when you talk ancient, when was ancient? Because we only, as a species, started settling and building anything about 12,000 years ago. And due to concurrent evolution, it happened in several places. And sad to say, actually, it first happened in Asia, not Africa. Sorry. At least according to geology. So,
But I think so. People left Africa. They went straight to Asia, and I think at some point they returned back to Africa, and that's why.
well,
Because otherwise, you think
sapiens
they
went,
stayed and never left Africa?
some stayed, some left, some came back. The thing about sapiens that made them different to most of the other species that didn't make it was that they were mobile, but they were capable of being mobile. And they could handle multiple different environments because of the greater brain capacity, which meant that they could then develop all sorts of things, which is kind of the
I
thing.
wonder what other cities were there in during ancient Egypt, because that had to be a big civilization, and they also probably traveled a lot and traded with other cities.
Well, it seems that the very, very first recorded sapiens sitting down and making a city was in Asia. I believe parts of it, I don't know if it is in modern day China, because borders have moved and changed. I think you might have found it was actually on the Mongol steppes, to be honest.
But our ancestors likely came from Asia as well. I think they went from Africa to Asia, and from Asia they went to Europe.
Well, there's different arguments as to how the actual spread happened and who went where first. We think that the group that stayed in Africa then moved up and across, down and around through India and into Australia. That was the first wave with them. The ones that went up into...
Earlier, here is the map.
The ones that went up into Europe, Homo erectus Europa, they spread around Europe, but some did come back to Africa. So you had a toing and a froing, eventually, once it became sapiens. But it's argued. And I've seen at least 4 different maps as to who went where, when, and how. So,
moment I can't zoom in.
no, but there's quite a lot of argument as to who was doing what when.
If you look, there's a bunch of islands
Yes,
all the way to Australia, from
Correct.
Asia to Australia. But there's a weird line from Africa.
as well, going down through India and across and eventually across through. Yes,
So we first went to Asia,
a group.
India, and then turned around.
It,
Well,
it gets
All the
kind
way
of
to America.
complicated as to did some go out and come back? Did some go out and not come back? So on and so forth. It is.
we're back now.
We're back now.
But I think it probably happened throughout history. We went there. I mean, people in Egypt, they probably also came from Asia and settled back then.
I think by and large, everybody went back and forth a lot, and for different reasons.
These that stayed, they died out. It was the travelers. It was the people leaving their civilization and moving on, because civilization keeps on crashing, dying. They settle
True.
down. Sooner or later, they die. It's those guys that's on the move that were the survivors.
But not just on the move when something happens, that they used the greater...
Disease broke out. They left.
Right. Now, we do know that, for example, though, Neanderthals stored food as well. At sites in Gibraltar, there were the butchered remains of 143 different bird species, most of them ground species, as well as proof of storage over 50 species of seeds, nuts, fruits, cereals, mushrooms, and these are Neanderthals. So they weren't dumb. They were also proof that they had fire, and that Neanderthals not only roasted meats, but smoked it to store it.
No, they were very intelligent creatures. I mean, they had advanced tools for their age. For that time, it was advanced tools.
Oh yes, and even
They were more
basic
advanced
medicine.
than Homo sapiens at that time.
Well, I don't know if we can go as much as to say that, but certainly equal.
But we
At
probably
least.
learned a lot from them
Both
during
and,
that time.
yeah. We know that they hunted and were very good at it, and that they cured the meat and possibly cured the skins for use, which is
They had
great.
stone-tipped spears and they had
Yes,
fire.
they did. Now, this is the reason why they think that they weren't wiped out, as a number of the weaker species were, but they were assimilated into the Homo sapiens. Because they had a far lower birth rate and a higher mortality, the interbreeding led to a stronger species on both sides with more brain power. And that's why ultimately you are left with Homo sapiens as we know it, that beat all the others. It was clever interbreeding as well. Now, sadly, they also practiced cannibalism when it was necessary, i.e. were short on food, but they did produce art. They made forms of non-functional objects because they were pretty, using bones and claws and teeth and shells and so on.
I saw a weird trend of cave paintings. A bunch of people, they all cut one of their fingers off
Okay,
and then painted their hand on the cave. It's
Interesting.
really weird. They all
Well-
had one finger missing.
it does prove that they understood art, and art for the sake of art. So some of the cave paintings that were always known to be Homo sapiens are now thought not to be. They're Neanderthal paintings, because they too were pretty far advanced, and they did understand life after death of some form, as is found in a number of burial
They
sites.
probably had communication skills as well.
Yes, they did. They had, in fact, a number of different forms of language of a kind. They did put their tools onto hafts to make spears and axes, more than just a hand type thingy. There's the 120,000-year-old German Laryngean spear, which is proof of that. The British Clacton spear, which is around 400,000 years old. So clearly they knew what they were doing. The difficulty was they weren't adaptive to climate as well, which Sapiens was. And so interbreeding saved them to a degree, and strengthened Sapiens as well, making them bigger and stronger and better. So we have at least that. Now, in terms of language, they certainly used complicated communications to discuss locations, hunting, gathering, tool making, and others. They had to, because they couldn't have taught each other all of these things and passed on the information without having managed to communicate in a language. Huge thanks to Endless Thoughts for those kind Go Populars and things, and it seems we are reaching our live goal. Thank you very, very much indeed. Guys, thank you for all the likes as well. We're on 9K. I do appreciate. So yeah, let's now talk what we actually came to talk, burials and religion. So we generally don't think they commonly buried their dead, but they did, because there were varying motivations for certain people to be buried with special care. And it seems that those they gave the most special care to were the graves of children, which is kind of sweet. And they were buried with artifacts showing that they had an idea of cemeteries, places to bury somebody special or important. There's one grave in the Shanidar cave in Iraq where geological layering and stuff has found pollen from several flowers that prove that somebody gathered a big bunch of flowers and put it in the grave with the body.
Oh, wow.
So they understood decoration, they understood caring for each other. They were a society.
Yeah.
So that shows that they were far more further along than you might think. Now, while that not everybody was so lucky as to get a special burial, important people did. And in some cases, they found a grave where not only were there flowers, but there were particular herbs, and all of them were medicinal, which leads people to believe maybe the person buried there was an important shaman, which shows that they understood that there was more than just the physical, that there was something spiritual out there as well. So yeah, Neanderthals were far more advanced than you think. Now, we know that they were big into their hunting. They were very, very good. And certain animals were hunted not for food, but for status. Where they found remains that indicate the animal was not butchered and eaten, it was simply killed and then buried, showing that it was done to prove that I can. Now this then follows on with what we were talking about, the interbreeding, and eventual extinction, possibly through interbreeding, but nevertheless leaving behind enough to show that they knew a lot more than we actually previously believed. Now, who's left? We know that the Denisovians are the ones from the top part of Russia, including Siberia, and they are now extinct. We know that the Cro-Magnon men were anatomically modern in Europe and West Asia, which are the earliest versions of sapiens. Your Floresiensis, which are supposedly extinct but might not be. The Luzonensis, which are from the Philippine Islands, which they think are extinct, but may have interbred and evolved with sapiens. You've got Naledi, which is an evolution from the original proto-humans of Africa, but which evolved within Africa. And Naledi comes from South Africa. And it didn't evolve the same as the ones that went north. So we've got different...
Wasn't Lucy also from South Africa?
Lucy was a Naledi and doesn't fit in properly with all the other evolutions, showing that she is actually a local evolution.
Oh, sorry.
No,
Sorry
don't worry
about
about that. We've all had it several times, and too bad. So it seems that there's a number of different evolutions that may have then reincorporated, which again, as I say, shows it's not about we had one origin, it all spread out, and then some of them died and one carried on. Not even slightly. It's more like a mangrove swamp where they spread out, came together, spread out, came together, mixed, and eventually became the sapiens as we know it. Now, it does then show that all of the ones recent enough, for example, that we can actually find effects of, did understand religion and were quite involved in it for varying reasons, even before they did settlements. So it was clearly a thing. Now, along with that,
I mean, for one thing, for sure, they did not believe in Jesus.
well, no, that's only been in the last 2,000 years.
Yeah.
So Abrahamic religion developed only in the last, at most, 4,000 years. It's really, really, really young.
But if you look at like the people in Göbekli Tepe or Stonehenge, you can see that's obviously a religious building.
Yes. Now, some say they
Thousands
are...
of years before Jesus was born.
Oh no, there were full-on religions. Many, many, many. Some say that Neanderthals only had a proto-religion, a purely mimemic community activity, but not with any real feeling. I personally would argue against that, because if you're intelligent enough to put flowers on a grave, you understand a lot more than just social activity. So I think that's actually a very stupid thing to say, personally. But he's an expert and has printed books on the subject, and I'm not, so you can believe who you like. But personally, I think that we really don't understand our own past, if you're going to say something like that.
People that call themselves experts, it doesn't
Make
give
them
them the
expert.
credibility. I just think they've got a big ego, and that's...
Right? I mean, we know that the early, well, who were the first ones? The Olmecs. The early Olmecs in South America, they had full-on religion, and they were a long time ago. I mean, they went back right into the times when Neanderthal was still around.
Are you talking about the pyramids in...
Well, the Olmecs were the first ones to start building pyramids. Then came the Mayans, and then came the Aztecs. So the oldest human species in South America that we know of, that we have record of, were the Olmecs. And they absolutely had religion. Full on
There's
good.
some scary stuff. Have you seen those rocks? Like a 1,000-ton rock.
Right.
What the
And that they put serious effort into their religion, which shows that they really understood and believed. We know that in the Polynesian islands, the early peoples there had serious religions. Look at the Easter Island heads. You know, that was hard work to do, but it was done. We know that all over South Africa, we've got stone circles that people built, showing they understood. They gathered in South Africa around 180,000 years ago things like specific quartz crystals that were gathered and put in. Stones with inscriptions or scratches of some kind on them. We might not be able to translate what it was or read it anymore, but they were deliberate. They were done on purpose, which shows that they meant to do it. So clearly there was a view of the sacred that did exist. And yes, they considered it important. Now, those pictures that you showed us earlier show that they had some kind of understanding of something greater. Now, whether it was a god or a spirit or a something, you can argue, and you will never know because we don't have any left to ask. But there was a something, and they were aware of it. 50,000 years ago, you can see drawings of things that clearly show that they at least had a view of religion. Maybe not.
Maybe they saw aliens. They
Well,
drew aliens.
that's the other argument. It is possible they did. Whether they did or didn't is another thing, because again, we can't ask them. But certainly early religion, shamanism, certainly. Whether or not it was the kind of religion as we understand religion is another story. But sure, there's all kinds of things. I mean, is that the Easter Island heads?
No, this is South America.
Ah, yeah. But I mean, come on. The amount of work to put all of those stones together, you had to mean it. It wasn't like a couple of lads bored one afternoon.
This is a big stone.
Yes. Many
It's a
tons.
big stone.
So clearly, we don't realize or know how much was done, and that matters.
Yeah.
So the short answer, which everybody has been waiting for, is going to come with some interesting things along with. The Neanderthals believed in spirits, at least, and the afterlife, even if not a god per se as we think of as a god. Okay? They buried food and prized items with their dead for the afterlife, as many ancient cultures did. We know that it was separately practiced by Neanderthals in Egypt, China, and the Central Asian steppes, as well as other places. We know
These are people,
Yeah.
like kings and stuff, like people that maybe contributed a bunch of stuff.
Or gods? Who's to say? We know that in Descubierta in northern Spain, Neanderthals placed the dead body of a small girl aged 2.5 to 3 years of age on 2 slabs of stone with an aurochs horn on the top, and then cremated the body. That shows serious ritual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, because they obviously didn't want anything digging up her body, or they cared enough, which is a big deal. We know that they were more spiritually and intellectually advanced than everybody thinks. The Shanidar Northern Iraq burial, that's the one with the child. The Russian Turkestan grave with the 42-year-old man sprinkled with flowers, probably a healer or shaman. The Turkestan grave with a 4-year-old boy buried with all the accoutrements of a warrior, as if they were his toys while he was trying to be like his dad.
Wow.
Now, can we say any of these things for
How many
absolute...
things do you think? Sorry.
Well, none of this is absolute certain, in all fairness. But we have no way of absolute certain. We can't.
I was just
Yeah,
gonna ask
say,
a
say.
strange question.
Yes?
No, just asking how many lost cities are buried in sand, not on purpose, but because of age.
Well, that's something we're going to have to talk about in another whole live, and I'll tell you why. It's turned out that the deserts we have were not always deserts. We know that this is true.
Yeah.
And we've also turned out, and here is a thing that they've realized is more important than you think. You go to Windhoek, okay? There's a village that was there 100 odd, maybe 200 years ago. I think it was about 100 years ago. It's not long at all. It's very short. And it got abandoned for varying reasons. And if you go there now, the houses are 3/4 under the sand, which indicates the movement of the sand in a desert is big and it covers a lot. So if in a mere 100 years I can pretty much cover a house, what would happen in 1,000 years? I could cover a city, easy.
Yeah.
Also, Göbekli Tepe, they actually dig that
Excavate.
up.
Yes. And that isn't even a sandy desert. That's a rocky desert which would move far slower. But move it
That-
did.
Pyramid.
Many of the pyramids that we found now were buried. We've dug them out. They were originally buried.
Yes. Like that one in South America. South America.
And in Egypt, hey?
People didn't even know it was a pyramid. They thought it was a mountain, but
Right?
because all
All the
trees and
jungle.
everything grew over it
Many of
until they
the,
dug it up.
they say around 40 Egyptian pyramids, little ones, I'll grant you, were all dug out of the sand. It wasn't known that anything was there until it was dug out. South America don't have sand, but that jungle covers things so fast, as Spooky says, we just thought it was a hill. And then realized, hang on, it's a very, very suspiciously neat hill. And when they dug down, they found it wasn't a hill. So very, very clearly, there's a lot more going on. We also know, for example, that Neanderthal used not only tools, but glue, string, certain kinds of primitive clothing, had specific homes where they kept stuff, had language. They had a society and family life. They had certain forms of medicine. They had art, engravings, and jewelry. So things that were created for no other reason than it was pretty. Their paintings are as much as 66,000 years old. They may, and here's where you really see advance, they may have had music. And music is something that is often concurrent to religion.
I've looked at some of ancient music, and they had flutes made out of bones.
Yes. And drums, and so quite a lot of stuff. Now, they say that there was a dispersal from Africa 50,000 years ago. Again, I'm going to say that even that is not long enough. I think it was even further back that dispersal occurred. We know that there was dancing, we know that there was music. There was all kinds of things in that regard with religion and more. We know, for example, that the development of language is another thing that goes along with religion, because you have to confer in order to develop a religion. It's just how humanity works. Religion is corporate. We've found really old things like your carved statuettes and things that are clearly a representation of something spiritual. So they had something, and it went back far, far further than just us oaks. Though, of course, once the Neolithic Revolution occurred and agriculture became standard, people also interbred more. So if you had Neanderthals living alongside Homo sapiens in one place, the peoples would elide and you would develop a single group. So that absolutely. Now, as Mickey said, stone circles in Britain. As Spooky said, the pyramids in South America. All of these things show we started on religion very, very early. Spirits probably first, before gods, but nevertheless, and way before what we would call modern religion in that
So
regard.
this is what they found, and
How
then
cool
they
is
started
that?
digging up, and they got that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
See, this is the big problem of the Amazon jungle, is that it grows faster even than sand can shift.
Yeah.
And when it comes to laying down mulch, it's really good at it.
Yeah, sure.
So it would cover things just as fast as a sand desert. Absolutely and without a doubt. And of course, as we know from Stonehenge, we've found it, we know it's there. It was never seriously covered because of the geography. We don't know bugger all about it.
I recently saw on TikTok, I don't know how true it is. Anyway, it said that inside Stonehenge, the actual structures, there's metal, steel.
Really? I shall
I don't
research
know.
that.
It was just
Because
randomly it popped up overnight. I saw it and I'm like, is this real? Is it not?
let me try and find out, because if there
Yeah, have a look
is,
and see.
that
Because
would be
I
Well,
was like,
freaking clever,
sorry,
I know,
what
but
was
I
that?
saw that I was like, what the heck?
right? We shall research that and I will report back to you on that. We
Yeah,
know
it's
for
like,
fact, with along these things, if there was ever any paint of any variety on the stones of Stonehenge, because of the geography and the weather, that would never have lasted. Not any
it
trace at
looks,
all.
from what I saw, it was pretty much steel, and then it was covered with some sort of rock. Like,
Okay, well, I will find out what I can, because that sounds fascinating. However, while Stonehenge might not be painted anymore, we know that there are places in France with amazing cave painting, in Spain and in South Africa and many, many other places, that show all kinds of advanced figures and, well, for its time advanced, with animals, with sorcerers, with things like Spooky showed us that could be aliens for all we know. Aliens, spirits, gods, we're not sure. But absolutely there was. From Key Marco in the Florida Keys, carvings of cats, lion men from the Germanic regions, fancy burials of all kinds. There's one where they buried a little girl with all kinds of horns from animals all around. I mean, it was obvious, deliberate. They understood that there was religion and a need to send on those they cared of. So clearly, humanity is older than we think and has been involved in such things longer than we think. And all of the standard science as we know it is just a guess. Maybe even the original origins of people are just a guess. It's very, very hard to say, because how do you know what they were thinking 50,000 years ago? Much less 200,000.
Yeah, or 400,000. I can imagine if there was advanced civilizations back then It'd all be underground, probably, most likely.
Well, things erode faster than you think, and because of the way that we build, how many cave paintings that we didn't know were there were bulldozed through when we built our cities, that just now they're gone because we never knew it was down there. I mean, all sorts of things are possible. There's a ton of possibilities. But what we can say is, however we got to where we are, our history is still a mystery. The Neanderthals were cleverer, and maybe there was more than one origin. And the human tree is a mangrove, and in no way straight.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, interesting. And it goes to show that maybe some cases the past is better than the present, because we know for a fact a great many of the older religions considered women, for example, to be equal to men. But the influx of Christianity said that only a patriarch is right. And that didn't bring too much good in that regard, did it? So, you know, the modern can be an advance and sometimes isn't. And maybe we can learn more from our past than we think.
Oh.
So yeah, until we get together for another one and we look at yet another ancient and interesting religion. Quick quiz. I expect an answer from any of you, including you guys in the comments, in the next live tomorrow. What is the oldest known formal religion? Tell me in the next one. And huge thanks to Endless Thoughts for the heart me. Yes, guys, remember, like, share, subscribe. Without you, no channel. So make sure you support. And the comments are required by TikTok nowadays. Otherwise, it thinks you don't exist or are a bot. That was the message I got to just warn me. So even if you just go in the comments and go like, Endless Thoughts did, active, that's enough.
Oh, I see.
Because if you don't, sometimes it may cut you off as a follower because it thinks you're a bot. So yeah, jump in the comments, type in anything, it doesn't matter what, and it proves you're real, and it will reinstate your following.
Yeah,
And it's
but
just
I
a
think
comment.
a lot of people, they don't sort of watch you, they sort of listen to you. So the phone is next to you.
They absolutely do. But it'll take 2 seconds, send a like, type your name, type a hi, it doesn't matter what. By doing it, you're proving your existence and it boosts the algorithm. So that's where we stand with the modern. But till the next one then, thank you very, very much for all of you who joined. It's been fantastic. I loved having you on. I think this was a brilliant one. It's certainly very interesting. I didn't know half of this. So I've learned.
That was really cool.
I hope you've learned. But remember, sleep well, sleep deep, sleep sweet. But sleep with one eye open, because it seems that around the corner there might be the next evolution hoping to take over from Homo sapiens. Homo technologica. It's coming. Good night.
Cool. Good night. Have a good night. Cheers.
Good night. Good night.
Bye.